Yes, indeed. Shalom Aleichem. Peace and blessings. It is I, B. Michael, aka Miykael Qorbanyahu. All praises to the Most High first and foremost. This is part two of what I had mentioned was going to take place yesterday. And so I want to go ahead and first and foremost, like I was saying, give all praises, esteem, and honor to our Heavenly Father, who I know is Yah, Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I want to also proclaim that in the name of my rabbi, my teacher, my master, my Messiah and kinsman redeemer, who I know is Yahoshua ben Yosef, the man from Nazareth. And so with that, I also want to let it be known that everything that is stated is without prejudice. All rights that I'm going to reserve at this time as well. And I'm never going to dissemble those or release those or relinquish those at any time, at any reason, for any matter. And so in doing that, I want to welcome anyone who is online and is here live with me today. I want to present this to you all in the name of, again, Yah, in the name of Yahushua. And this is going to be called Conflict in the Land of Milk and Honey, a prophetic historical analysis. So we're going to look at this prophetically and historically. We're going to look at that according to the word of Yah, prophetically speaking. And we're going to look at it historically as well and unite the two. Okay. And so I was saying yesterday that, I'm not on either side of the two factions involved. I'm on the side of truth. I'm on the side of prophecy. I'm on the side of history. I'm on the side of Yah, the Most High. That's whose side I'm taking. Now, I will espouse this as well. I believe that humanity is involved on both sides of those particular factions, but I also believe that there are serpents, that there are devils, that there are satanim, there are adversaries on both sides as well. And we'd be foolish to think otherwise and thinking that either side is all good or all bad, and so we want to make sure that we're weighing this out in the balance of history, in the balance of prophecy. And so doing that will arrive us at a better conclusion. And even more importantly, give us an understanding of what we are supposed to be doing and who we even are. Who are we? And what are we supposed to do? Because our alliances and our loyalties will be determined by our identity, who we identify with. You can say it's identity politics. Yes, in a sense it is. But what we have to understand, again, is at the end of the day, there's one human race, right? And then being of one human race, we have to understand, according to Genesis 3, prophetically speaking, there are two seeds in that race. Those two seeds are the seed of the woman, which is the seed that will lead to the redemption of the earth. And then you have the seed of the serpent, which is the adversary, the darkness, the seeds that are trying to actually corrupt the earth. There's nothing that falls between that. There's only those who are and those who are not. There's only light and darkness. There's only heaven and earth, okay? And so the heaven will endure, the earth will, of course, disappear. But let me go ahead and get my screen shared. I do have some websites, some scriptures that I want to share with you all today. I want to make sure that you all have that. It's actually, you can see all the citations in the link below in the comments section. I have all the citations there. I want to go ahead and share my screen. And I wanted to, again, start with identity. It's so important for us to understand the importance of identity. I always propose that the issue and the crisis that quote unquote Black people in America, African and Americans, the so-called Negro, what we suffer from most tragically and most tragically is an identity crisis. We don't know who we are. And so not knowing who we are leads us to a state of apparitionhood. We're ghosts, you know what I'm saying? And then we're actually the creation of who the people who say we are who we are. And so we've been told for so many years we're African American, we're Black, we're Negroes. But historically and even nationalistically, that places us nowhere. For African Americans, we're conflicted. That's the two-ness that W.B. Du Bois spoke about. We have this conflicting consciousness. African American, right? Black. Well, that's an adjective. Where do Black people come from? But I digress. I'm not going to get all into that. Identity, right? Genesis 10 provides us with what is called the Table of Nations. The Table of Nations provides us with a chart of where humanity today descends from. These are the people who are the progenitors of the population that we know of today of 8 billion plus people. These are the progenitors. These are the originators of all of humanity, according to the Torah. So as we read this, I'm just going to read verses 1. Let's see. Yeah, this is interesting. We're going to read about 1 through 18. So it says as follows. This is the genealogy of the sons of Noah. So Noah, right? Let's start with Noah after the flood, the post-Diluvian generation. Shem, Ham, Yafet, okay? And sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Yafet, Gomer and Magog, Madai and Yawan, Tubal and Meshech, Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz and Riphtah and Togarmah. And the sons of Yawan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim and Dodani. From these, it says the Isle of the Gentiles in other versions, but they call these people the Gentiles, or the coastland peoples of the nations were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their clans, into their nations. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mitzrayim, and Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Hawilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sabtika. And the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush brought forth Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yah, therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yah. And I do beg you all's pardon. I want to go ahead and record this as well. And the beginning of his reign was Babel and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Ashur and built Nineveh and Rehoboth, Ir, and Keilah, and Resen, between Nineveh and Keilah, the great city. And Mitzrayim brought forth Ludi, and Anamim, and Lechabim, and Naphtuchim, and Pathrusim, and Kasluchim, from whom came the Kasluchim, the Philistine, and the Kaphtorim. The Philistines are African peoples. Ham is the father of Mitzrayim. Okay? And so when we go back and we see this, this is what we got to understand. These are African peoples. So we'll talk about this a little bit later. And Canaan brought forth Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite, and the Hivite, and the Archite, and the Sinite. Okay? And the Aradite, and the Semorite, and the Hamathite. And afterward, the clans of the Canaanites were spread abroad. So these are the peoples of Canaan. Canaan is an African people. Okay, Canaan is an African land. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as you go toward Gerar, as far as Azah, or what we know as Gaza, as you go towards Sidon and Amorah, or Gomorrah, and Admon, Seboyim, as far as Lasha. These were the sons of Ham according to their clans, according to their language, in their lands, in their nations. Also to Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the Hebrews, okay? The brother of Yiftah, the elder. Children were born. Who are Shem's children? The sons of Shem is Elam, Ashur, Arpashad, Lud, and Aram. And the sons of Aram, Uts and Hur, Geter and Mash. And Arpashad brought forth Shelach, and Shelach brought forth Eber, the Hebrew. These are where the Hebrews come from, the Habiru, okay, the Ibrim. And to Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Yoktan. And Yoktan brought forth Almodad, and Shelef, and Hatzmaraweth, and Yerach, and Hadoram, and Uzal, and Dikla, and Obal, and Abimael, and Sheba, and Ophir, which some say Africa comes from Afir, Africa, Ophir. This is where the name Africa, some say, is derived. And Hawilah, and Yobab. All these were sons of Yoktan. And their dwelling place was from Misha, as you go towards Sephar, which is in Spain, Sepharad, the mountain of the east. These were the sons of Shem, according to their clans, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. These were the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their generations, in their nations. And from these, the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. So it's going to be important for us to really decipher these peoples and these nations. And so when we do that, what we're going to do is actually decode this with some oral tradition first and foremost. We're going to get into some things that really, it's important, but it's not. And what I'm talking about are phenotypes in terms of appearance, our physical appearance. But it was recorded in what we know as the Babylonian Talmud. In the words of the rabbis, they documented matters that were of import to them for various reasons. And so what we're going to do first is look at something from what's called Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, okay? This was translated in 1916. Rabbi Eliezer goes way back, I want to say, to the Amoraic age between 200 and 500. Let me just take a quick look. I didn't really think to look at that, but I'm going to take a look at that real quick. See when Rabbi Eliezer was alive. And so he was a rabbi. His name is Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. He was in Tiberias around the 1st and 2nd century in Judea. So this was translated around the 1900s. He was a colleague of Rabbi Gamliel, who was the rabbi of who we know of as Paul of Tarsus, or Rav Shaul of Tarsus. Okay. And he was quite mentioned in the Mishnah. And of course, the Talmud comes from the Mishnaic writing. So he is what we would call a Mishnaic rabbi from the ages of the Mishnah, which was from 10 to about 200. Okay. And so he wants to comment on Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. But in so doing, look what this man says. This is the 1st and 2nd century. Noah brought forth his sons and his grandsons, and he blessed them with their several settlements. And he gave them as an inheritance all the earth. This is from Sephariah.org. This is the Jewish library, pretty much, online Jewish library of many texts and many documents. It says he especially blessed Shem and his sons, making them dark but comely. Making them dark but comely. We hear Solomon say that, I am dark but lovely, or dark and comely. So Shem and his people, his children, were dark but comely. And he gave them the habitable earth. He blessed Ham and his sons, making them dark like the raven, and he gave them as an inheritance the coast of the sea. Shem and Ham are dark. He blessed Japhet and his sons, making them entirely white, and he gave them for an inheritance the desert and its fields. These are the inheritances with which he endowed them. This is from a 1st century rabbi commenting on Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, for some reason wanting to discuss the matter of their phenotype and identifying them. Very interesting. I find this very interesting. And so when we look at this, some people will say, well, they're talking about their character, their moral character. No, this is dealing with their appearance. Taking it a step further, when we look at the Talmud itself, we will see in Mishnah Negaim dealing with leprosy, the disease of leprosy. The Mishnah in this particular matter here deals with the problem that the color of the negaim, or the leprosy, appears differently depending upon the skin color of the person being examined. This could undermine the objectivity of the examination. The phenotype of the individual being examined could be undermined. Well, the recognition of the disease of leprosy could be undermined if you are not attentive to the appearance of the skin color of the individual being examined. Okay. He says the bright spot in the German. Who are the Germans? Gomer. So you have Ashkenaz, you have Togarma. Let's go back to Genesis 10, right? When we look at the sons of Gomer, this is Germany, Ashkenaz, Rifta, Togarma. Just put that in your pocket, though, because this is going to become very important to understand. But of the Germani, the bright spot appears as dull white, and the dull white spot in an Ethiopian appears as bright white. So they're contrasting Caucasians and Africans in phenotype. They're contrasting individuals with not as much melanin and those individuals who have melanin, okay? A bright spot is impure, but on a pale German, I assume this means anyone from Northern Europe, it will look dull. So leprosy will look different on a European or Eurasian than it will on an African. This would mean that he will be declared pure, even though he should not be. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a dull spot, which should not be impure, will look bright on an Ethiopian skin. This will cause him to be isolated, and then, if it remains, to be declared impure. This question is, how do we deal with the situation? Rabbi Ishmael, in the Mishnah, he says this, says, the children of Israel, may I be atoned for them, are like boxwood. What does boxwood look like? They're neither black nor white, but of an intermediate shade. Rabbi Ishmael says that we use the skin of Israelites, which is dark, but not black as the barometer. This is because the laws of Negaim were stated with regard to Israelites. As an aside, Rabbi Ishmael offers to take upon himself vicarious atonement for Israel's sins. What color is boxwood? This is what the skin of an Israelite typically looks like in history. They're dark. They're not black, but they're brown, okay? They're melanated, okay? And I just want to bring that up because this is going to really lend to understanding the inheritance of this particular land as relates to the people. Who are the people? Who are the people of that particular land? Why is this conflict raging between these people? And I made a statement that yesterday that it belongs to neither of the people in question. It's very sweeping and very broad and controversial, but we're going to take a look. We're going to take a look. And this is, again, dealing with prophetic history. We're dealing with prophecy, the word of Yah. We're dealing with history because while both sides of these people deal with this book, right? If you're dealing with the Palestinians and their Muslim affiliation, well, they still refer to Torah with their references to Quran, right? The Quran is founded on Torah, okay? And then, of course, the Jews deal with what we know as the Torah, the Tanakh, okay? The so-called Old Testament, the Tanakh. You're dealing with the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. But I want to do something now a little different. I want to go to a prophecy. I want to look at these four beasts real quick. And I'm not going to really get into the depths of this, but I want to look at Daniel chapter 7, starting at verse 3. He says, 4 great beasts came up from the sea, different from one another, okay? And I bring these beasts up because we are still in the midst of one of these 4 beasts. We are still in the midst of the rule of one of these 4 beasts. One of these 4 beasts are still ruling. One of these 4 beasts is still orchestrating everything behind the scenes that we know is going on and at work. The first was like a lion. This is Babylon, okay? The empire Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar. It had eagle's wings. I was looking until its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and it was given a man's heart. So eventually, Nebuchadnezzar gets humbled and becomes more humane in his heart, but he dies, gives his kingdom over to his son. His son's kingdom is defeated by this second beast, like a bear, known as Persia, Media Persia. And it was raised up. And this is historical too. You can look at this in successive history of these people's rising up. It was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said to it, arise, devour much flesh, right? So these 3 ribs are dealing with Darius, Koresh, and Ahasuerus, the 3 kings of Persia that were ruling during the time of its existence as an empire. Of course, under Koresh or Cyrus, the decree was made for Israel to go home, right? And when you look at what was going on, because here's the thing, I'm going to go back, because these 4 incursions, these 4 beasts, if you will, were destructive to Israel. Persia was a little less, but these 4 beasts were destructive to Israel. In fact, before Babylon, there was an Assyrian captivity that took the northern tribe off. There's some relics that shows what the northern tribe people look like. Look at their beards. They got knotty beards, right? These are Hebrew slaves going into captivity, right? When we look at these pictures, these relics, these reliefs, you can see Israelites here, right? The exiles to Babylon. Look at this man's knotty hair, kinky hair. Look at this. These are Israelites going into captivity. He got dreadlocks. He got a knotty beard. These are the people of Israel, of ancient, in Babylon. You can see that. So when we look at the Assyrians, even, we can see that they were, knotty-haired people. They were African people. You're dealing with the Sagiga people. The Sagiga people were known as the Blackheads. Look at this. Knotty hair, knotty beards, hair like wool. They depicted it as well as they could during these reliefs of their captivity. Okay. And we're going to get why this is important, because these relate to the land even today, and why this land is so contested, because Babylon wanted Israel. Persia was like, you know what, we'll colonize you all, but we'll allow you all to do what you need to do. Greece wanted Israel. Rome definitely wanted and wants Israel. Okay, these 4 beasts, and we'll talk about those other 2 very much soon. So again, this 3rd beast looked into the night visions. He saw another like a leopard, which had on its wings 4 wings of a bird. So now you're dealing with Seleucids, you're dealing with the Ptolemies, you're dealing with 2 others. I can't remember the other empires, but the Grecians. So this is where Hellenism begins. This is where Western civilization becomes prominent, okay, with the 3rd empire of Greece. Prior to that, the Western influence, Eurasia, was not very prominent, historically speaking. There were barbaric peoples at this time. They were very uncivilized people, just speaking historically. Okay, so this is going around, of course, Alexander's age. What year was Alexander of Macedonia? Alexander of Macedonia. So these people were actually developing. So this is around the 300s, right? BCE. So prior to 356, really BCE, well, around this time here, around the 4th century BCE, you're now still starting to deal with the civilization of Eurasia in Europe, the northern Mediterraneans, okay? Prior to that, it was all barbaric. Those people were known to be barbarians, just period. I mean, it's historically speaking. I'm not trying to be funny or racist or anything. Historically speaking, it was known that those peoples were barbaric, bloodthirsty, warlike, very, very aggressive in their nature, right? You have the Mongols, you have, the Khans, you have the Khazars, you have the Goths, the Visigoths, right? You have the Franks, the Goths, right? You have the Romans, the Dodanim, right? The Kittim, the Greeks. These people at times were very aggressive in their behavior and their nature, okay? And lastly, we have this 4th beast. I looked in the night vision and saw a 4th beast, fearsome and burly, exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. This is the Roman Empire, which lives very much so is alive. It received the mortal wound in about 1783. It got healed 1789 under Napoleon when his general went in and deposed the Pope, cut off the temporal power of Rome, brought the Pope to Venice. The Pope dies in exile. They institute a interim Pope, but he had no power. He had no power except in Vatican City. But here comes 1923. Benito Mussolini signs the Lateran Treaty, fulfills the prophecy of Revelation 13 with this mortal wound being healed. Vatican is given full sovereign power as a city-state and has been ruling ever since. Okay, but this really goes back to the Caesars, and particularly dealing with Constantine instituting this particular matter of Christendom and the Holy Roman Empire becoming what we know is now the Vatican, or the Holy See, and the Catholic Church. And so I want to bring these four beasts forth because these are where you start to see the unfolding of prophecy dealing with this land. Each of these four beasts had something to do with the land of Israel, what we also call the land of Canaan. We'll see, it is called the land of Palestine. We're going to see why today it's called the land of Palestine. And we're going to talk about this. But in Revelation chapter 13, you see these two beasts coming from this one beast rise up, right? And they're like, who can make war with this beast? So you have a beast from the sea, which prophetically speaking is the Vatican. It fits the characteristics. They're like 11 characteristics that fits no other entity on earth except the Vatican. And then you have a beast from the earth that is the United States of America. I mean, just prophetically speaking, these traits fit. I can post a video that has that as well. But when you're looking at the time in which this beast was destroyed it received its mortal wound in 1789, you had another beast coming up out of the earth, and that was when the Federation for of the United States was taking place. The conference for the Federation of the United States was taking place in Philadelphia. And so now you have these two entities here, and they're exercising all the authority of this earth, of this world, excuse me, to make war. To make war. Okay. And so one thing that we have to understand in deciphering this is identifying, again, individuals and nations. The beast, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Who are these peoples? And so as we identify these things, we can start to understand who is who and what's what and why things are taking place. That's why I was saying, people are so concerned about what's going on, but don't know why things are going on. We have to know why things are going on. And this is what can give us that insight and that understanding. Prophetically speaking, it will align and focus and adjust our perception so we can see what's going on behind the scenes. Because if you're just watching the news and reading the paper, you're getting a story that is being spun to the narrative of the individuals who want you to side with their particular position. Okay, but the Most High wants us to think critically ourselves and to arrive at the revelation of the truth. And you do that solely by going within, studying history, reading the word, staying righteous, pursuing set apartness and holiness, loving your neighbor, loving the Most High with all your heart, soul, and strength, being obedient to the decrees of the kingdom, choosing who you are serving. What's your source of power? That's important. And so as we see these two beasts coming out of the earth, they're setting the stage for what we know of today of bringing forth Satan's government. So we hear that being called the New World Order, the one world government, which is just a counterfeit of Yah's kingdom on earth. That's all the enemy is doing, is counterfeiting everything Yah has done to bring forth this global reality, globalization, that is intent on being a godless, do as you will, be the whole of the law type of society. In essence, that's really what it is. There's no moral, there's no ethics, there's no justice that is established in this particular matter. It's so arbitrary, and it's so unjust and so corrupt and so imbalanced. This is why we see the world crying out, because what they're racing towards is a full revelation of the doctrine of Lucifer on earth. I mean, it's really that clear if you look at it. It's really that clear. It's a Luciferian agenda that is taking place, which lives are not valued. Material is, of course, you can see that, right? There's no righteousness. There's no standards. There's no morality. There's no ethics. It's just do as you will, you know? The end justifies the means. And so when we look at the world, we can see this chaos, this confusion, this formlessness and void throughout the earth. This is why it's so important for Yah's people to step forward, because Yah is saying, let there be light. Bring this stuff into the light. Let us see what's going on. But this darkness has to be lifted. We have to be able to understand what was scripted, because this is the thing about the Creator. There is a mind behind the whole design of creation. There is a mind behind the entire design of creation, and that mind is what we have to align with, right? In order for this to manifest. This is that oneness, that vibration I was talking about yesterday. We have to get on the right vibe. If you're talking about good vibes, every day that Yah made one of the days of creation, he said, and it was good. Tov, it was good. So being good, that's what we have to do. And how are we good? We respond to Yah's word. That's what we do, period. So moving on, these two beasts setting the stage for this global cataclysm that's coming forth. I mean, it's right here. This could be a very, very huge tripwire for that matter. But when we look at Revelation 16, I want to go down to verse 12. And this sixth messenger who pours out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, right? And as water was dried up, we see that happening. It's happened already, in order to prepare the way of the sovereigns from the east. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon. Who is the dragon? The dragon is Satan. The dragon is the serpent of old. This dragon is the devil, okay? The seed of the serpent goes back to Genesis 3. There's a seed, though. This is what you got to understand. There is a seed on earth that is functioning in the form of a dragon. It is associated with the beast. It's associated with the beast. And so this dragon, what we're told is that Satan is understood as his synagogue. So it says those who say they are Jews but are not Jews, but of the synagogue of Satan. So that's who the dragon is, the synagogue of Satan. The key word in that is synagogue, right? The mouth of the beast, the fourth beast, we just identified that. The fourth beast, of course, is the Vatican. And now the mouth of the false prophet. And this is so challenging for people, but that is the false prophet who they're calling Muhammad. But when you put this together and you look out on the historical landscape of, and the political, geopolitical, socioeconomic, psycho-spiritual landscape of earth, you can see all this stuff unfold. You can see that there's no other entities besides these three entities who are the spirits of demons, the teachings of demons, doing signs which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yah the Almighty. They have caused more bloodshed on earth than any particular entities ever. Religion. So this is religion. This is organized religion. This is not speaking about the individuals. This is speaking about the organization, the religious institution as such. Like I said, they're human beings that are calling themselves Christian and Muslim and Jewish. But these entities, these unclean spirits, these beasts and dragons and false prophets as an institution is doing damage. Understand what I'm saying, please. Understand what I'm saying. These organized religious institutions are devilish. They have no means to redeem anyone's soul. They're working in concert to bring about this great battle for the day of Yah, because they want this earth so that their world order can be established. And so these entities are orchestrating events such as what we just saw to divide humanity that much more, because once you're divided, once you're exasperated, once you're so exhausted with these wars, well, then the plan, according to what is called the Palladian Rite, is to just be like, we don't believe nothing anymore. Because they're trying to work this attrition out. They're trying to make sure they're wearing and breaking you down so thoroughly that I don't want to deal with Judaism. I don't want to deal with Christianity. I don't want to deal with Islam. I don't want to deal with no faith. I don't want to deal with nothing. Got you. Thank you. And so this is why it's so important for us to decipher this and understand this at root, right? But our master, my rabbi told me some things about what was going to take place. Listen to this. Right? He was telling Israel in his teaching, his taught ones about, what was about to take place with him, and then when the kingdom was going to come. So this is from Matthew 24. Going out, Yahushua went away from the temple, the set apart place, and his taught ones came near to point out to him the buildings of the set apart place. Like, hey man, that's so awesome. Isn't this temple just beautiful? And Yahushua said to them, do you not see all these? Truly I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another at all, which shall not be thrown down. What? Why would you say something like that, Master? Because you all have gotten corrupt. You all have become dependent on a temple, which you're supposed to be. You're the temple, but you're relying on these rituals taking place at the temple to cover your sin, where you're not even supposed to be sinning. You're supposed to be sin-free. You're supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be Yah, in fact, on earth. You're supposed to reflect Yah's image and likeness on earth. You are the temple. But because people have become so reliant on the temple, and the temple has gotten so corrupted because these Sadducees, these Levitical priests, have been co-opted by the Roman state, the Holy Roman Empire, and made my father's house a den of thieves. It's not a house of prayer for all peoples anymore. It's a den of thieves. You're telling me I can't bring my own animal to the temple? I gotta buy a temple animal so I can make a sacrifice, when it used to be I could bring my own animal. Now I gotta buy a doggone animal because it's called taxation without representation. That's what Rome was doing then, even then. Israel had no say in what was taking place in the Roman province of Judea, with Pontius Pilate presiding over the jurisdiction of that particular area. The prefect of that area, really? And the puppet of Herod and his son, Edomites, ruling as the king of Judea, really? No. That's not what's supposed to be. That's not what's supposed to be. It was not supposed to be. But that's how this stuff has started to take place. Rome had finagled and finessed its way in there. The Messiah was like, you know what? Don't give Caesar what's Caesar, but give Yah what belongs to Yah. I don't deal with Caesar, Yahushua was saying. I don't deal with Caesar. My kingdom is of another. He says it's not of this world. And he wasn't saying it was off the planet. He's saying it's not of your system. My kingdom is an entirely different system. It's an entirely different order. Okay? But look what he goes on to say. He sat down on the Mount of Olives. The taught ones came up to him separately, saying, say to us when this shall be, and what is the sign of your coming and the end of the age? And Yahushua answering said to them, take heed no one leads you astray. First and foremost, don't let these talking heads deceive you all. Don't get caught up in these empty words, in this rhetoric, in this, what they call that, propaganda. The broadcasted spell that they're providing through the media, the broadcasted spell, it's broadcast, y'all. It's a broadcast. It's a broadcast. It's a wide spell that they're casting through the media, Medea Persians, they were magicians, Medea, Persia, right? They were magicians. They were sorcerers. They used different tactics to manipulate the minds of people to do their will. This is exactly what's taking place now, and we're getting led astray as a people. But Messiah, Yahushua, tells us, take heed, no one lead you astray. To many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they shall lead many astray. I'll talk about that later. And you shall begin to hear fightings and reports of fightings, wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled. So many people are distraught in this war about, and it's a tragedy. No, don't get me wrong. The loss of human life is tragic. It should not happen. There are crimes that are taking place, war crimes that are taking place that should not be taking place. But because of the greed and the power hungering pursuits of man, this is what's taking place. They're not submitting their will to the Most High. They're wanting to do their own thing. He tells us these have to take place, but the end is not yet. This has to take place. Everything we're seeing right now, it has to take place. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. When we talked about Havle Mashiach, the birth pains of Messiah, this is what it says. But look, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places. All these are the beginnings of birth pains. They shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Why? Because you're telling the truth. We're telling the truth, and nobody wants to hear the truth. People would rather hear a convenient lie than the inconvenient truth. I remember this meme. There's two booths. One says the inconvenient truth with someone standing there, nobody in line. Inconvenient lie with somebody in the booth, everybody on that side. Nobody wants to hear the truth. And when you do hear the truth, again, I talked about this yesterday. Cognitive dissonance is that such where you just reject it automatically. That can't be the truth. Even though it lines up with the truth, no, that's not what I was told. Well, do your research. Stop listening to just people tell you what you want to hear or what they want you to hear, right? Many shall stumble. What does that mean? They're going to fall away from the faith. They shall deliver up one another and shall hate one another. Why? Because the Torah has grown cold. The Torah has been done away with. Lawlessness has increased. Therefore, love has waxed cold. People don't even know what the Torah is anymore, pretty much outside of, exclusive circles. And many false prophets shall arise up and lead many astray. I ain't even going to talk about these preachers and teachers. I ain't going to say nothing. And because of the increase in lawlessness, the love of many shall become cold, but he who shall have endured to the end shall be saved, right? And so this is here about now dealing with the destruction of the temple. And this destruction of the temple is so important to us to understand because after 70 of the current era, when the temple was destroyed initially, Israel fled. They went into the same place that they usually always go when there's some incursions. They went to the south. They went into Egypt. They fled into the south parts of that particular landmass, into the heart of Africa as well, and into the west coast of Africa. That's where they go. That's where our ancestors always went when there was trouble in the land. We always went to Egypt. Where did Abraham go when there's a famine? Egypt. Where did Jacob go? Well, Jacob went to Mesopotamia, right? But even Isaac went to Egypt for a little while. Moses, of course, Joseph went to Egypt, right? All of Israel went to Egypt. Okay, the Messiah, Yahushua, went to Egypt. So Egypt was a place of refuge time and time and time again. And the Israelites in Genesis 50 were confused with the Egyptians when the Canaanites saw them going out to bury Jacob or Israel. They're like, whoa, that's a huge contingency of Egyptians. No, those are Israelites with some Egyptians. Anyway. But I bring this up again because the destruction of the temple is so important. Rome, who destroyed the temple in 70 under Titus, took away, you have some images here, took away the menorah. They carried it off into Rome with many other different vessels of the temple, right? And had started the full destruction of Jerusalem and Judea, but it was finally accomplished in the 100s under an emperor by the name of Hadrian. And this emperor known as Hadrian establishes a new province in Jerusalem. You see the name of this article here, right? This is from the Encyclopedia Britannica. The name of the article is entitled Roman Palestine. Roman Palestine. After the destruction of Jerusalem, a legion called the Kai Fretensis was stationed on the site, and the rank of the provincial governor was raised from procurator to legatus Augusti, signifying a change from equestrian to senatorial rank. Caesarea Maritima, the governor's residence, became a Roman colony, and as a reward for the loyalty of the Greeks in the revolt, a new pagan city, Neapolis, modern-day Nablus, in the West Bank, was founded at Shechem. Shechem was very important to Israel. This was the religious center of the Samaritans. The Samaritans, though, were a mixed breed of people that the Assyrians brought in after they exiled the Israelites of the northern tribes. The 10 tribes got exiled. They brought in Samaritans, and they were polytheistic. The Jews, deprived of the temple, founded a new religious center in the rabbinical school of Yamnia or Yavne. When a revolt broke out in 115, the Roman Emperor Trajan appointed the first consular legate at Judea, Lucius Quietus, to suppress it. The rank of the legate confirms that 2 legions were stationed in Judea, one at Jerusalem, the other at Capernaum in Galilee, north and south, and thenceforth the province must have held consular status. In 132, this is where it gets deep, the Emperor Hadrian decided to build a Roman colony, Aelia Capitolina, on the site of Jerusalem. This is what Messiah says in Matthew 24. I didn't read that. He says, when you see the desolation, the abomination of desolation set up in the temple, head to the mountains. When you see the abomination that lays waste spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, set up in the set apart place, he who reads, let him understand, then let those who are in Yahuda and Judea flee to the mountains. This is what Hadrian did. He built a temple to Zeus, which is what Aelia Capitolina means, on the Temple Mount. The announcement of his plan, as well as his ban on circumcision, right, just completely destroying Torah culture, revolt later, but only for the Jews, provoked a much more serious uprising, the second Jewish revolt led by Shimon bar Kokhba, who was the disciple of Rav Akiva. It was ruthlessly suppressed by Julius Severus. According to certain accounts, almost 1,000 villages were destroyed and more than 500,000 people killed. In Judea proper, the Jews seem to have been virtually exterminated, but they survived in Galilee, which, like Samaria, appears to have held aloof from the revolt, right? So they were stamped out. Tiberias in Galilee became the seat of the Jewish patriarch. So keep in mind, right, what's going on today is the same thing that's been going on in Israel. The Israelites have already experienced this, but nobody's really recalling that. Nobody's talking about the attempted genocide that had taken place because Israel wanted to preserve its culture in this land, that the Romans came and completely said, no, you can't do that in your own land. What? That's not talked about. Let's frame this. Let's really frame this, right? Continuing on, listen to this. Tiberias in Galilee became the seat of Jewish patriarchs. The province of Judea was renamed Syria Palestina by Rome. And this is what Hadrian did. So Palestine has its root in Roman political moves. Let's be clear about this. And according to Eusebius of Caesarea, no Jew was thenceforth allowed to set foot in Jerusalem or the surrounding district in their own land. In our own land. We couldn't even go home because Rome had set up its own little province called Palestina. That's a heavy little bomb that nobody wants to deal with right there, right? Historically, prophetic history. Keeping in mind who Israel is. Israel is dark and comely. Israel's of Shem. Israel of Hebrews, okay? Israel looked like they had some woolly hair, some knotty beards, some curly beards. The prohibition apparently was relaxed sometime later to permit Jews to enter Jerusalem one day a year on a day of mourning called Tisha B'Av. That's the day of the destruction of the temple. That's not Yom Kippur. That's not even the holiest day of the year. Although this ban was officially still in force as far as the late century, 4th century CE, there's some evidence that from the Severan period onward after 193, Jews visited the city more frequently, especially at certain festival times, and even that there may have been some Jews in residence, okay? Look at this. I'm going to continue reading this. I'm going to go to another article. About the time the Bar Kokhba revolt was crushed in 135, Hadrian proceeded to convert Jerusalem into a Greco-Roman city, right? With a circus, an amphitheater, baths, and a theater, and with streets conforming to the Roman pattern grid. He also erected temples dedicated to Jupiter and himself. Aelia was his clan name, on the very site of the destroyed temple of Jerusalem. This is the prophecy Messiah had talked about, that he was like, this is going to happen. Ain't going to be no doggone No doggone stone standing here in this temple, because what Rome is about to do to this place is ridiculous, right? To repopulate the city, listen to what he did. Hadrian apparently brought in Greco-Syrians, these are the Palestinians, from the surrounding areas, and even perhaps some legionary veterans. The urbanization and Hellenization of Palestine was continued during the reign of the Emperor Septimus Severus, 193 to 211, except in Galilee, where the Jewish presence remained strong. They were Syrian Greeks that were brought into Palestine to repopulate the land after Israel got exterminated and banned from their own home. That's how Palestine had its start. And this is why even today, Palestine is being proclaimed by the beast from the earth and the beast from the sea, because the fourth beast still wants that land. And they're using mechanisms and peoples to do that, except it just turned on them. And that's why the Crusades started, because when Islam was started, they were supposed to destroy the Jews. And when they got the Jews out the land, this is like the 600s, right? Islam was like, we're going to establish our own caliphate. We're going to have our own place here now. So as these people started to convert and to observe their new religion under Islam, now, so these people aren't even Arab. It says they're not Arab. They're what do they call them? They're Greco-Syrians, Greco-Syrians. They're Greco-Syrians. They're from Yafet. How do we know that? Well, let's go to this next article here from the Smithsonian Magazine. The Smithsonian. The name of this article is called "When Ancient DNA Gets Politicized." So Encyclopedia Britannica just confirmed that Hadrian brought in transplants after the Judeans, the Israelites, particularly the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, were exterminated and exiled from their own land. Okay. They brought in Greco-Syrians, the Romans did, to populate that land. So in a string of 3 tweets, 10 ancient skeletons became geopolitical pawns. Last weekend, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, or whoever in his administration operates his Twitter account, tweeted about a new study that had been published in the Journal of Science Advances and covered widely in the media, including the Smithsonian. The study analyzed DNA from 10 individuals who had been buried at Ashkelon, a coastal city in Israel, one that is now abandoned, one that is now almost in ruins and rubble because of Hamas, and also, just how this incursion is going. This is between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, though. The results suggested that the appearance of new genetic signatures in 4 of the individuals coincided with changes in the archaeological record that had been associated with the arrival of the Philistines more than 3,000 years ago. The Philistines, okay, the Palestinians, really. The Philistines, remember, they're from Egypt. They're from Ham. The original Philistines are Hamitic. They're Hamitic. They're African. They're dark, black people. These genetic traits resemble those of ancient peoples who lived in what is now Greece, Italy, and Spain, Greco-Syrian. Okay? The authors asserted that these findings supported the idea that the Philistines, a group of people made infamous in the Hebrew Bible as the enemies of the Israelites, originally migrated to the Levant from somewhere in southern Europe, but quickly mixed with local populations. There you have it. There you have it. DNA study reveals Philistines were originally from Europe. And I'm not saying, they're really saying Palestinians. The Philistines were Hamitic. Hamites were African. Okay. A DNA study of an archaeological site shows the biblical Philistines long vanished, derived as primitive, were originally from Europe. They weren't originally from Europe. We saw what happened. We saw how the Palestinians were brought in as Greco-Syrians by Hadrian. We go back to Genesis 10 again. We can see the Philistines come from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim comes from Ham. Ham, as we read earlier, is dark like a raven. And he had the inheritance of the coast of the sea, dealing with the continent of Africa. My bad. But this individual here, Daniel Estrin, lets us know that archaeologists, again, they dug in the city of Ashkelon, found that they actually had an advanced artistic culture. Okay. The Bible says the Philistines immigrated to the Holy Land from a place in the west. Their pottery suggests the Aegean, but archaeologists found more direct evidence to sample the bones of babies who they believe were born to the original Philistine immigrants who came from overseas in the 12th century. They sent samples to DNA lab in Germany. Okay. These babies show distinctive patterns that we find in the European Stone Age. And as we track back those distinctive patterns of DNA, we find them in places like Southern Europe, we find them in Italy, or the Aegean, southern Spain, some of those places. It's DNA patterns you don't find in the ancient peoples of the Middle East. That's not their home, y'all. That's not their land. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now, they've migrated and have settled there, but prophetically speaking, historically speaking, they are not indigenous to that land. They don't, the claims that they're making of that land are not the claims that they have of that land. They don't. They do not. Oh, but guess what else? Oh, but guess what else? Highlight out of Khazaria, evidence for Jewish genome lacking. Elron El-Hayk, Jewish man from Israel, matter of fact, conducted a genetic study similar to the one that was just taking place on the so-called Philistines. What is he going to find? This is an article it was published on the National Library of Medicine. I want to go back to these websites are pretty, what you would call them? They're pretty legitimate, right? This is NPR.org. I like Amy Goodman and NPR, Democracy Now!, but NPR is a pretty legitimate news source. Smithsonian, in terms of art and dealing with stuff, it's pretty legitimate, right? Encyclopedia Britannica, it's pretty legitimate. You know what I mean? Like, this is some good source information. It's not Rudy Poot, just, speculative conjecture and stuff. It's pretty legitimate in its terms of research. Okay. It's pretty legit. So when we look at the National Library of Medicine article, Hebrew language and Jewish culture have been around for thousands of years, so says this author Danielle Vinton. For much of that history, the Jews managed to maintain their heritage and cultural identity in the absence of a geographical state. Wandering, settlements, and dispersal were thus a big part of their history. Is evidence for that preserved in genome data? Is there evidence? Well, I know the Limba have evidence. I know the Igbo have evidence, right? I know that there's people called Gola also that have evidence of genetic patterns that connect them to their priestly particular gene and their gene as Israelites. Elron El-Hayk, a geneticist at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, thinks so. In a recently published study in Genome Biology Evolution from 2012, he is calling for a rewrite of commonly held assumptions about Jewish ancestry. Instead of being primarily the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel, present-day Jewish populations are, finds El-Hayk, primarily the children of a Turkish people who lived in what is now Russia, north of Georgia, east of Ukraine. Ashkenazim. Jews call themselves, particularly European Jews, call themselves Ashkenaz and Sephardic. That's Spanish or that's Germanic. Okay. And again, when we go back to the sons of Japhet, Gomer, Ashkenaz, this is what the Jews call themselves, Ashkenazic Jews, Gomer, and Rivta and Togarma. So what this DNA study is suggesting is that these Jews, the European Jews, come from Eurasia, come from Europe. They're the children of Russians, Georgians, and Ukrainians. In this civilization, the Khazars converted from tribal religions to Judaism between the 7th and 9th centuries during a heightened time of the Crusades when Islam and Christendom were banging. And they was like, you know what? We don't really want to deal with that. We're going to take a neutral position and go with the Jews politically. The controversy cut into El Haig's work run deep for the past, far past the lab bench. Among some circles, his conclusions are bound to be unpopular. This is the first scientific paper to prove the Khazarian hypothesis and reject the Rhineland hypothesis, he says, and with it, about 40 years of research. So there's another Jew by the name of Arthur Koestler who wrote a book called The 13th Tribe, in which he presented information that the Jews of European ancestry that we know are not Israelites. They're not descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're descended from from Japhet, Ashkenaz, and Togarmah. That's their descendants, he's saying. Their ancestors, excuse me. Although his findings will not be welcomed in all circles, El Haig's interest is more medical than political. He said, I was doing this for some medical reasons. I wasn't trying to be political about this, but guess what? It points to some political earthquakes. So all I want is to help my colleagues who are studying genetic disorders. I hope this work will open up a new era in genetic studies where population stratification will be used more correctly. It wasn't even meant to be political when he did this research. But when he found it, guess what? It was a bombshell. He was like, oh my. Jewish populations are used in many disease studies because of their presumed genetic homogeny. Some conditions, such as Tay-Sachs disease, are more common among select Jewish populations than other populations. However, El Haig says the acceptance of a flawed origin narrative is hampering the best science. For several decades, two hypothetical backgrounds of present-day European Jews have seemed plausible to historians and geneticists. In the favored Rhineland hypotheses, Jews descended from Israelite Canaanite tribes who left the Holy Land for Europe in the 7th century, following the Muslim conquest of Palestine. Then in the beginning of the 15th century, a group of approximately 50,000 left Germany, the Rhineland, for the East. There they reproduced rapidly in a kind of hyper baby boom. Their breeding outpaced their non-Jewish neighbors by an order of magnitude, despite diseases, persecutions, wars, and economic hardship, ballooning to approximately 8 million strong in the 20th century. Under this history, European Jews would be very similar to each other and would have Middle Eastern ancestry. Several scholars prefer the Khazarian hypothesis, El Haig included. This suggests that Jewish convert Khazars with reinforcements from Mesopotamian and Greco-Roman Jews formed the basis of Eastern Europe's Jewish population when they fled northeast, following the collapse of their empire in the 13th century. El Haig first became fascinated by this idea 10 years ago when reading Arthur Koestler's best-selling book, The 13th Tribe, published in 1976. Koestler calculated that Jews could not have numbered 8 million in Eastern European without the Khazar contribution. Upon reading his ideas, I couldn't wait for genetic data that would allow someone to publish an evaluation of this hypothesis, which he did. But I want to do something else. I want to go to Fordham University. I think Fordham University is pretty reputable as well. That's a pretty reputable school, if I might say myself. They have a medieval source book, and this is a medieval Jewish kingdom of the Khazars from 740 to 1259. About the year 740, according to this introduction, many of the Khazars, a powerful Turkish tribe occupying the steppes of southern Russia, became converts to Judaism, according to this article. More than 2 centuries later, the report of the existence of this Jewish kingdom aroused the curiosity of Hasdai ibn Shaprut. Ibn Shaprut was not only the personal physician of the Spanish caliphs, Abd al-Rahman III and his son Hakam II, but was also Inspector General of Customs and advisor in foreign affairs. To satisfy his curiosity, he wrote to the ruler of the Khazars about 960, and sometime later received an answer from Joseph, the reigning king. The letters of Hasdai and Joseph, both originally written in Hebrew, are given below in extract. Okay, so let me make a statement, and you can do some research on this as well, about this era, the 10th century Spain. Keep in mind, these are considered the Dark Ages. It wasn't even considered the Renaissance yet. These were the Dark Ages, right? Why they called the Dark Ages? Because the Dark Ages were the ages which the Moorish influence, both Hebrew and Muslim, both Jewish or Judaism and Islam, right? Both Israelite and Arab were prevailing in Spain. Because they couldn't go different places, so they had to go where they could fit in. They got in where they fit in. And so Spain was one of the places that they went until the Alhambra Decree in 1492, issued by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, with the assistance of the Pope. Pope Nicholas V, I believe. And so with that, now you have the exile of the Jews from Spain. And where do they go? Alexandria, Egypt. They go back to Israel. Some of them go into Northern Europe or into Europe, but many of them go back to their original lands because they were African people. They were African people. Maimonides was a Moor, and people, I don't want to make it a matter of race because it's not, again, there's only one race, there's the human race. And let's keep in mind, no flesh and blood shall inherit the kingdom of heaven, right? But we have to understand this, right? We have to be on the right side of prophecy. We have to be on the right side of history. We have to be on the right side of truth. Let no one deceive you. And so I bring this up because when we entertain what's going on today and we look at what's going on today, we have to keep in mind how this conflict is impacting people and how people are siding with sides that they don't really know who's there. They don't even know what's going on and how this came about. But this conflict is being used very politically. But this letter of Rabbi Hasdai, son of Isaac ibn Shaprut, to king of the Khazars, is just inquiring like, okay, so what's going on? How y'all get there? What's going on? I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on this response. The letter of Joseph the king, son of Aaron the king, the Turk, may his creator preserve him, to the head of the assembly, Hasdai, the son of Isaac, son of Ezra, about 960. Listen to this. He says, I wish to inform you that your beautifully phrased letter was given us by Isaac, son of Eliezer, a Jew of the land of Germany. Isaac carried it through Germany, Hungary, and Russia to Khazaria. You made us happy, and we are delighted with your understanding and wisdom. Let us therefore renew the diplomatic relations that once obtained between our fathers, and let us transmit this heritage to our children. So Joseph believed, this king at the time in 960, that the Khazars had once had diplomatic relations with the Spanish Arabs. He said, you ask us also in your epistle, of what people, of what family, and of what tribe are you? Know that we are descended from Japhet. It's over. All the genetic research that has been done, all of the lines that point to the Khazarian hypothesis are summarized here. Know that we are descended from Japhet through his son Togarma, the Turk. In Jewish literature, Togarma is the father of all the Turks. So that's how we can identify these. That's why I went to Genesis 10 first, because we can identify who's who and what's what. I have found in the genealogical books of my ancestors that Togarma had 10 sons. These are their names. The eldest was Ujur, the second Taurus, the third Avar, the fourth Uaz, the fifth Bizar, the sixth Tardna, the seventh Khazar, the eighth Janur, the ninth Bolgar, the 10th Sawir. These are the mythical founders of tribes that once lived in the neighborhood of the Black and Caspian Seas. I am a descendant of Khazar, the seventh son. So I'm really not going to read that much more. It's in there. You can go read it some more on your own. I want to look at King Bulan, king of the Khazars, who in 620 embraced Judaism. This is when the conversion began, in the year 620. Joseph Hagan, king of the Khazars, in an answer to a letter from Hasdai ibn Shaprut, informs him that 340 years earlier, one of his ancestors, Bulan, became ruler of the Khazars. To him, Yah appeared in a dream, promising him might and glory. Bulan went by the Daralan road, the Caucasus, to Aradavil, the capital of Azerbaijan, in Armenia, and gained great victories. He then determined to adopt the Jewish religion. The Byzantine emperor and the Caliph of Ismail each sent to him deputations with valuable presence and wise men versed in religious matters to convert him to their respective religions. Why? Because they were an instrumental war-like people who would have tipped the scale in the Crusades. If the Muslims got him, the Muslims would have went on victorious. If the Christians got him, the Christians would have went on and been victorious. What does Bulan do in his strategic methods? He converts to Judaism. He's like, I can stay neutral in this matter, and I can play both sides. I can do both these people. Bulan summoned wise men of Israel also and examined them all. As both the representatives of the religion of the Nazarene and those of Islam referred to Judaism as the foundation of their faiths, Bulan declared that they, the opponents of Judaism, had themselves made an impartial avowal of the excellence of the Jewish religion, and he therefore accepted it. So there it is. There we have it. The Palestinian and the Jewish question is really a simple answer. When you do historical research, it's really a simple answer, but people don't want to do the research. So I'm lining it up for you. And what remains is the question of who are the Israelites? Who are the children of Israel? But I want to bring this here with, that's a whole nother study. I'll get to that in another study. I want to close with this here. Torah Jews. Torah Jews. These are Jews, Ashkenazim particularly, and Sephardim, who say that their mission is to inform the world that the state of Israel does not represent Jews or Judaism. Fold, fold, fold. Fold. The state of Israel, these Torah Jews say, does not represent Jews or Judaism. On their page that's called their mission, it says the relatively new concept of Zionism, political Zionism, began only about 100 years ago, and since that time, Torah true Jewry, those Jews who were sacrificed during the Holocaust because of their pronouncements of not agreeing with the state of Israel, because they understood it was to be a kingdom, not a state, they got murdered by their own people, though. That's what's so crazy. Yeah, you could say the Nazis did it, but guess who funded the Nazis? True Jewry has steadfastly opposed the Zionist ideology. This struggle is rooted in two convictions. One, Zionism, by advocating a political and military end to the Jewish exile, denies the very essence of our diaspora existence. We are in exile by divine decree because of our disobedience, and may emerge from exile solely via divine redemption due to our repentance. All human efforts to alter a metaphysical reality are doomed to end in failure and bloodshed. History has clearly borne out this teaching, but this is why these three unclean spirits coming out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet are doing this. They're doing this intentionally to bring forth the desired result that they want. It's a Hegelian dialectic. It's a Hegelian dialectic because the synthesis that they want to create from the thesis and antithesis that they're like conflicted with or making conflict is to bring forth this Luciferian new world order. Period. And if you don't see it, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. But that's the first reason, because Israel is in diaspora because of our disobedience. And this does include the stranger who sojourns with us and takes on the covenant in their heart. It includes the Gentile. It includes Togarma, who said, you know what, we're going to observe Torah. But there's some serpents that got in there and said, we're not. We're going to use this expediently as a political device to go about bringing forth our desired reality. We don't care about Yah. We don't care about the kingdom of Yah. We don't care about that. We're going to do our thing. I'm going to be great. I'm going to have glory. That's what Satan was told. That's what Satan told Mashiach. Go back to what Bulan was told. He said, I'm going to have might and glory. In Matthew and Luke 4, after his fast, the Messiah is taken up on a mountain, shown all the kingdoms of the earth and of the world, and said, I'll give all these to you and their glory. Guess who took it? Guess who took it hook, line, and sinker? Number two, Zionism has not only denied our fundamental belief in heavenly redemption, it has also created a pseudo-Judaism, which views the essence of our identity to be a secular nationalism. Accordingly, Zionism and the Israeli state have consistently endeavored via persuasion and coercion and force to replace a divine and Torah-centered understanding of our peoplehood with an armed materialism. True Torah Jews is dedicated to informing the world, and in particular the American public and politicians, that not all Jews support the ideology of the Zionist state called Israel. In fact, a great number of Orthodox Jews view the ideology of the state as a diametrically opposed to the teachings of traditional Judaism. This is anti-Torah. Zionism, according to this article, is anti-Torah. We are concerned that the widespread misconception that all Jews support the Zionist state and its actions endangers Jews worldwide. We are not politically motivated. We are motivated by our concern for the peace and safety of all people throughout the world, including those living in the Zionist state. We support and pray for peace for the people of the Zionist state, but have no interest in and do not support the Zionist government. This is why Israel has been in uproar. There have been many demonstrations in Israel prior to this here, because there's some human beings in Israel. There's also some devils in Israel. There's some human beings in Palestine, but there's also some devils in Palestine. But when we get back to the root of this, and we see who the European and who the Greek Greco-Syrian is, and who they are, it's not their land. That's the point that I want to, it's not their land. And the people whose land it is are just like taking one of the side or the other, not understanding this is about you. It's about you. It's about you. What are you going to do in the midst of this? And the key again is to understand the divine redemption that we are supposed to undergo. We have to be redeemed first. We have to go through our process of being reborn as the children of Elohim. That's the redemption. That's why I was talking about that yesterday. Because we have to completely understand our purpose in life is to reflect the image and likeness of Yah, to have sovereignty first over yourself and your surroundings and creation, and then to be fruitful and multiply. And to love Yah with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. That's it. That's everything in a wrap. That's wrapped up right there. So that's what I wanted to present today. There's more that I can get into, but again, in summary, when we look at this, we know that the Ashkenazic Jew does not descend from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They descend from Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Togarmah. It doesn't exclude them from the covenant, though. Let's be clear about that. If they choose to really join the kingdom of Israel, anyone is open to do that. But you have to take it on in your heart, and you have to fulfill the commandments of Yah. That's the agreement. That's the contract between Yah and Israel. Anybody can be a part of Israel. Anybody can receive the promises and the blessings of the land and the life that comes with that land, but not in this fashion. And again, the Palestinians, they're Roman, they're subject to Rome. That's a Roman creation, including the people who they brought in from Greco-Syrian areas. They're not indigenous to that, because the indigenous people were Egyptians. They were Hamites. They were black, like the raven, and comely. And the true Israelites also are dark and comely and look like boxwood. Yeah. And so when we really break all this down and we put these pieces of this puzzle together, prayerfully, it makes sense that we can understand who's who and what's what. But the call at the end of the day is repentance. Shuvu ki hagiyah malchut ha-shamayim. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's the key. That's the word of the day. That's what me and my brothers and sisters in Beit Mashiach, what we are proclaiming, what we are branding in our life is that particular phrase, Shuvu ki hagiya malchut ha-shemayim. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's something that we are ingraining, that we took upon our heart, leading up to Yom Kippur with the days of all, taking into the Feast of Tabernacles and on to Kingdom Come. Because that's it. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And these are the birth pains. What we're seeing are the birth pains. What we're seeing are the birth pains. And so let us prepare our hearts and our minds to receive this kingdom because it's at hand. But I want to thank everyone who chose to listen. I want to thank for you all who come and check it out. This will be uploaded actually on YouTube. You can check out Miykael Qorbanyahu on YouTube. If you want to go back and catch this in its full, if you want to go take anything from it, you're more than welcome. But I'm getting ready for my service now. Coming up, we have our fellowship at 1:00. You can check us out on YouTube as well. And then we'll just go forth from there. But this is Miykael Qorbanyahu, aka Big Michael, signing off. Much love. Shalom Aleichem to everybody. Stop my share. And I'm going to stop my stream. Shabbat Shalom.